he goes to Bethlehem and he kills every 2-year-old baby. And the response that the prophet says is Rachel is weeping. She's lamenting. She's crying out because her children are no more. And then the scripture says this, she refuses to be comforted. So when we talk about Black pain, I think this is a powerful text that kind of helps us wrap our minds and our hearts around what that pain is kind of like to give us an understanding. You have to understand that for the African American, the pain that they've experienced didn't just start with George Floyd's murder. The pain has been going on for over 400 years from slavery. From the time that Africans were pulled out of Africa, brought to America, sold in slavery, separated from their families, experienced Jim Crow laws, broken apart, torn apart, made to work hard, didn't know if they were going to live from one day to the next. Finally, when so-called emancipation comes, they're struggling, they're still oppressed, they still deal with racism. There's been a 400-year narrative that's taken place. And sometimes I hear people say, well, you know, why don't you guys just get over it? Why don't you just bag it? That's something that happened a long time ago. Well, the reality is this. Even though slavery happened hundreds of years ago, the narrative still continues. And every time there's an incident that happens, it just continues to rip open the scab, and the pain goes deeper and deeper and deeper, and it creates and it brings to surface a trauma that has never, ever really been gotten over. The other day, I was preaching at a large church, and I was talking a little bit about racism. And after the service, God bless her, this young white girl, she comes up to me, and she says to me, I thought that we were through with that. I never would have known that racism still existed in America today. She says, I was so shocked. I was on the bus with my husband, and there was a Black man that was on the bus, and he was helping me. And she says, this white person came up and just began to assault him and talk crazy to him. I couldn't believe that this kind of thing still exists. Well, it does exist. I remember as a boy, I grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood in Bellevue, Washington. My family was one of the only Black families on the block. We were one of the only Black families in the school, me, my brother, and maybe a couple other African-American kids. And I remember the first day I walked home from the first grade, I'm coming up from the stairs, and there are three or four little white boys that lived on my block. They never said hi. They never said, let's play. The first words that came out of their mouth was, go home and wash that paint off your face. Now, I get that message as a first grader. Then fast forward a year or two. We're on the bus. We're goofing off. We're being bad kids on the bus. You know, when you ride the school bus, you're supposed to sit down and wait till you get the right place. But you know how boys will be boys. So we're jumping around. I'm the only Black kid on the bus. We're jumping around. We're playing this game, and guys are hopping from seat to seat. And so I'm moving around just like everybody else. And so the bus driver, he says, Mike, sit down. He says, Scott, sit down. He says, Mike, you sit down. And then he says, you too, Black boy, you sit down. Now, everybody else has a name, but I'm just Black boy. I cannot tell you the times younger growing up where I saw my father come in the house, and they're riding and these marches are nothing new. I remember watching my father go through civil rights things. He would come home and sometimes just lay on the floor because they had been gassed. I watched him struggle in his job and in his employment with different racist types of things. My point is this, that it's a continuum. It continues to happen over and over and over and over again. And just because it may be out of your mind or out of your sight, it does not mean that it does not exist. And what happens is when that wound festers and the wound grows and it hits a place and it reaches a pitch where it's like, I just can't take anymore. So we had the young man, Ahmaud Arbery. We saw the other, Breonna Taylor, and then now George Floyd. What are people supposed to do with that kind of anger? What in the world? What do you do that? You just can't say, oh, go take a chill pill, just kind of relax, or just kind of pray about it. It opens up wounds, and the pain gnashes. The pain is deep. The pain hurts. The pain torments. The pain tortures. And you say, what do I do to deal with this kind of pain? The scripture says Rachel lamented, and the kicker is this. It said she refused to be comforted. So in other words, she has this pain because her children are gone. She has this pain because innocent little boys, 2 and under, they're wiped out. And she's saying, listen, don't comfort me. Don't talk to me. Don't try to appease me. Don't give me platitudes. Don't give me little cliches. Don't bring to me little religious quilts or political sayings or political quilts. No, what I love has been taken away from me. And what you're offering as a comfort, I don't want it because the pain is so deep and the pain is so real. And I believe this is what many African Americans are experiencing today, a real pain where they're saying, I don't want to be comforted. We can't take any more of this.